Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see.
Welcome everyone to the Slavery Still Exists petition handover event. Thank you all very much for coming. A warm welcome to Member of Parliament and all of you here who have given us such great support over the 7 weeks of the campaign. Today is a fitting day to be talking about slavery. It's the UN Day for the remembrance of the slave trade and its abolition. It's a day which represents a law that was passed in British Parliament 200 years ago, which followed a campaign by William Wilberforce over decades to achieve the abolition of the transatlantic slave trade. The song that we just heard was a song from that era. It's a song written by an ex-slave trader. He was a captain of a slave boat, and he wrote the song after he realised that the practice of slavery was wrong. 200 years on, we are again realising that slavery still exists and that there is a problem. This realisation from the New Zealand public surrounding this campaign is represented today with over 17,000 signatures. We need change, and today is the beginning of that change.
But today, 27 million people, at a conservative estimate, are still slaves. And when we talk about slaves, we're not talking about farm labourers who don't get paid a lot, or factory workers that aren't earning a lot, or not even child labour. We're talking about people who face violence every day. They're forced to work, they're held against their will, and they're paid nothing. And I think it's important because a lot of people obscure the issue by bringing low wages in. We're talking about slaves who receive no wages. Slavery used to be based on colour and race and religion. That no longer holds true. Today, slavery is based around poverty. It's an action of deprivation. People who want to get out of the lives that they face, the grinding poverty that they face, become easy prey for slavery. The type of slavery has also changed. It used to be one of ownership. That ownership doesn't really exist anymore. It is like the rest of the world. We're seeing part-time, temporary slaves coming into action. Where someone doesn't own them, they use them and throw them out. Slaves have become a consumable item. The reason it exists is for one reason only: profit. It is very, very, very profitable to be in the slave trade. I'll give you an example of a recent case that came up in Brazil, where a 12-year-old girl who didn't go to school, who had no future, she had no job to look forward to, her family was tricked into believing that she could get a job in a hotel or in a restaurant in a town in another county. The family paid a person, a recruiter, to take her to this new job. She was taken there, she was then sold to a brothel for $150. She was then sold for sex 10 times a night. In 1 month she earned $10,000 for that brothel owner. That's the sort of profit that slavery brings. And you say, well, how does that affect us? Well, slavery doesn't just happen in third world countries. It happens in first world countries. There have been cases all the time that comes up. Domestic servants in London and Paris who have been found chained in their homes that work for people. Farm labourers in the United States that work with armed guards and are locked up at night. These happen all over the world. Thai and Philippine women will be in brothels in every country in the world. This is taking place right in front of us. We do come in contact with it every day in the products we buy. The cheap shoes and carpets from Pakistan, the shirt from India, these things are often made using slavery, and it's very hard to identify for a person. How do they decide this? How do they work it out? And this is a problem that we're grappling with, because businesses that are involved in this don't want to take responsibility. They have long supply chains. People who make the products are long and distant, they're far away. They have brokers in between. They say it's not our problem. We would say it is your problem. And there's a recent court case, the court case is going on now in the United States over cocoa importers. The United States has a law stopping people bringing in slave-made products. They are taking all the cocoa importers to court, a group of human rights activists over there in a fair trade organisation. Now, as part of the court case, the statement of corporate responsibility of these organisations was brought up, where they specifically state, we will not use slave labour. And this was raised in court and said, well, you are using slave labour. Now, the defence, the businesses there, and these are large multinational corporations, defence was, well, our statement of corporate responsibility is aspirational only. No one can possibly expect that we'll take action if we actually found slaves. Businesses, big businesses, are failing to address this problem, and that is why we have to turn to governments to sort it out. Morality takes second place to profits. But when laws become involved, when it becomes illegal to trade in slavery, then businesses start to take a little bit of notice, because that can cost them if they get caught doing it. And that's why I'm heartened by the support, the cross-party support. We've had every party in Parliament has supported this petition, and we've had wonderful response from the public of New Zealand to this petition. And if I could borrow some words from William Wilberforce and change them a little bit, I would say to the politicians that this is sorry, you may choose to ignore this petition, but you can't ignore the feelings of the people of New Zealand, because they've expressed it in it.
When Drissa was a teenager, he decided to leave his village in Mali to look for work. Drissa crossed the border into neighbouring Côte d'Ivoire, where he heard there were many jobs available for people who did not mind working hard. When he arrived in Kohobo, he was pleased to be offered what sounded like a good job on a cocoa plantation. Drissa agreed on the payment and work arrangements, and then went with the employment recruiter to begin his new job. Drissa's new job suddenly turned into a nightmare. He became a slave. Drissa and 17 other boys and young men on the cocoa plantation were forced to spend long days tending the cocoa plants and collecting the pods. The slaveholder gave them little to eat, and many times only braised banana for months on end. Weak from hunger, they staggered under large sacks of cocoa pods. If they slowed in their work, they were beaten. At night, the slaveholder locked them all into a small room with only a tin can to use as a toilet. Drissa was trapped. He was more than 300 miles from home, in a new country, far from any settlement, and he did not even know exactly where he was. One evening, Drissa attempted to escape, but the slaveholder caught him and savagely beat him. The next day, Drissa was forced to work. Even though the wounds from the beating were still raw, flies feasted on his exposed flesh. Drissa and the other slaves on that farm were eventually rescued by an official of the Malian government. After their rescue, Drissa and his friends were given medical care and a safe place to stay until they could return home. Drissa's story helps tell the world that slavery still exists. And today we're very proud that Diane Yates has accepted our invitation to accept our petition. Diane is the chair of the Foreign Affairs and Trade Select Committee. We'd like to invite Diane to come forward to accept the petitions. If those have got petitions could come up.
Colleagues here, Keith Rock from the Green Party. We have Barbara Stewart from New Zealand First, Ashraf Chowdhury just coming up from Labour, Jill Pettis from Labour, and Ross Robertson from Labour here today. And I also will have other colleagues joining us when their committees finish at just about now. And a special apology from the Honourable Winston Peters, who was unable to be here today but wanted to make sure that you knew that he knew about this and that he wanted his apology announced. And the Honourable Phil Goff, who is overseas at this present time. So the Minister of Foreign Affairs and also the Minister of Trade are very aware of this petition. Very happy to receive this petition and just explain to you what happens from here. Some of you have been invited in to meet with us and talk more about the petition. The petition then gets presented to the Clerk of the House. The Clerk of the House checks the signatures and sees that they're real people. And then that petition goes to the House and then will be sent to a select committee, to the Foreign Affairs, Defence and Trade Select Committee, where we will consider it. Now, I'm particularly pleased to receive this, and I know that many of you will have seen the film Amazing Grace, which features a very distant relative of mine, William Pitt. And those of you who've seen it, I saw the film and I was in tears at the end of it. Those of you who've seen it, when the pipe band plays at the end, I guarantee you will be in tears. But it's a real tribute to the perseverance, not only of William Wilberforce, but to the range of people who assisted him. The Archbishop of Canterbury has an article where he says he believes that William Wilberforce was the greatest reformer that ever lived. And he said that not only because of slavery, but because of the value he put on human beings and human beings' participation in society, in the workplace, in democracy, and he claims him as the greatest reformer that ever lived. I'm also pleased to announce today, and when we move in she will join us, that my colleague Lynn Pillay has been considering a private member's bill on this issue. So she has said that once the petition has been through the select committee and we've heard from people and we make our recommendations, she will take up on those recommendations and formulate a private member's bill. So we're really pleased that this will come, and I'm pleased to announce that today. So Lynn will join us. She's at the moment chairing the Justice Select Committee, which is appropriate. I'll also say, I think, thank you for the singing of Amazing Grace. It is an amazing song, and what is amazing about it is that everybody who knows anything about soccer knows that at soccer matches in Britain, that is the hymn that everybody sings, that is the hymn that everybody knows, and that is, I think, why people are so touched not only by the film, but this amazing song and the message that is carried by music, because what we know is that the message of the slaves is still carried in the music, and the music that has come from those slave people. And it is, you know, the message of freedom is also the message of music. So thank you for singing so wonderfully for us today. I also want to thank AID. I thank you for your vigilance. As a former trustee, I'm very aware of the work that you do, that you're very aware of slavery, and I think what hasn't been mentioned today, which is of particular concern, is child labour as slavery. And the one thing that does also concern me, and I've just come back from Europe, is the trafficking in women. And that is something that is, you know, we tend to think of certain countries as being associated with the slave trade, but the trafficking of women that is going on in Europe, and I saw it with my own eyes on a holiday recently there, was something that really shocked me. And we don't know. Often people end up in the sea, in the Mediterranean, of all places. So the trafficking of women is part of this whole slave trade area, and it is happening in Western countries as much as in other countries we may normally associate with rumours of slave trade. So thank you once again. I look forward to the progress of this petition. We will certainly keep everybody informed, and a big thank you once again to Trade Aid for the effort that you have done and timing it on this day, which is the UNESCO Day for the remembrance of the abolition of slavery. But thank you very much.